17 and we're going to go over this drawboard. I built the drawboard a lot quicker than I'd anticipated because I needed some measurements. I had to build some side tapes because, as you can tell, it's windy as heck here in New Mexico, so I couldn't sight in a new sight from Sword at 50 yards. I could only do in the shop at 20 yards. So I had to scramble and put this together before I shot the final video. So now we're going to do some adjustments because I've learned some things that I think are needed. So I've got the post on. I've got some sports tape wrapped around it. It's got a little bit of sticky to it, so it's kind of nice. One of the things that I learned was the carabiners that I called out in my parts list are too big to fit in the slots here on the digital scale, so I'm going to have to scale that down. I'll probably add an update in the comments to this video. I also learned that I don't have long enough arms to hold the bow and cycle this thing around. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to go ahead and push this forward. I've got the 40-inch ruler from Harbor Freight on here, and I've got it 1.75 inches at the base or the front of the post. We'll need a couple of things to do this. I like one of these speed squares. They're pretty nice, pretty handy to have. We'll need a box end and open end wrench, drill bit, pencil, and a couple of screws to screw the ruler back down because I want to add some stickers to the drawboard, so I'm going to do that real quick. Need that. So instead of cutting off the ruler like some of the drawboard build videos say, what I did was just move the post over a little bit, mounted that, and then made my mark with the speed square off the front of the post, and then went ahead and set the ruler down. Now I never reuse screws. Sometimes the heads get chewed up, sometimes they don't, but I'm in a habit of the small screws. You know, they're cheap enough, just grab a whole box, you're fine. I probably won't reuse these lag screws because I'm going to be putting this thing back on through fresh pre-drilled holes, so they'll snug. If I was reusing these in those same holes, I would probably go a size larger. Let's go ahead and take this apart. I have a ratcheting box end, open end wrench here, so that makes things a little bit easier, but you don't necessarily need one of these. It's just one of those things that's nice to have. So when I pull this screw out, you'll notice I've got a washer on it. That's because this particular winch has slotted holes for the mounting of this thing, and you never want to mount a piece of equipment with slotted holes without a washer. It's just common practice in the industry. Move this out of the way and get these other two off. since I've used this to get the measurements I needed, I was using Archer's Advantage, the program to build my site tapes. I got my site tuned in at 20 yards in the shop, and I've still got to normally get a 50 yard or a 60 yard reading, but with the wind, you know, it wasn't going to be reliable, so I went ahead and got the Archer's Advantage program and built my site tape, and two of the measurements I needed, I'll be discussing more in length in part 3 of this, and that's going to be the simple guide to what measurements you can get, what useful information you can get off of a draw board with a digital scale on it. But I needed a pin to center of peak at full draw measurement, and I also needed a center of peak to center of arrow at full draw as well, and that allowed the program to calculate, based on me also chronoing the bow at the bow shop, everything I needed to build a pretty good site tape. So when I got out to the competition yesterday and sighted in, it was pretty darn close. I believe 50 yards or 50 meters is, I don't know, 54.68 yards or something like that. So I set it at 56, found it was shooting a little low, needed to be a little hot, cranked it up to about 57 yards on the tape, and I was dialed right in. Wind was an equalizer for everybody, so. But a fun shoot nonetheless. Sometimes these ratcheting wrenches, they don't cooperate well. They are handy, but you got to figure out how to use the damn thing. So this winch turned out pretty good. I like the fact that I don't have to lock it down or anything like that. Where it stops, that's where it stops, full draw, you know. One of the things I learned was I had put in my parts list a turnbuckle. Now if you're using a strap type boat winch or something to that effect, I think you'd need the turnbuckle for finer adjustments. Once you've got it up to your draw stops, finer adjustments will bring it right up there. This has got such a fine-tuned adjustment that I really don't need the turnbuckle, so I'm kind of subtracting that from my build. So let's go ahead and put this ruler back on, and I think we're going to go ahead and lift this up and move it down a little bit so it's not being blocked, because it's a good logo. I don't want to cover it up. I don't really want to cover up the Obsession bows, but it's a big honking sticker. So I've got 3 brand new screws and a washer, because I've got a extraordinarily large hole in the end of this ruler here, and I'm going to put this thing back in. I had to hand drill 2 small holes at this end of the ruler in order to be able to have 3 points of attachment. I'm going to do this one with the washer here first. I'm drilling through a sticker that I can't see the hole, so I'd rather do that. And I'm just going to do them loose a little bit, and now I'm going to go ahead and cinch them down. Another thing I figured out is I think down here, because of this metal here, I really like to go ahead and put a rag over it. Just kind of tape it down and just kind of protect the finish on the bow. Most of them are you know, either powder coated or some kind of hardened coating over the paint, so I'd just rather it kind of protect my bow. I mean, we put enough money into these things that let's keep them nice looking. So I'm going to move this up and cinch it down. Now this Craftsman workbench is what I'm going to be using to mount this draw board. My thinking was, when I mounted it way back there, I'm clamping it into this board, I don't need to go any farther, but well, I mounted it to the back, and sure enough, that was not the right thing to do. So okay, I'm going to raise this up a little bit because I'd like to get my speed square in there and make sure I square this off real good before I draw the holes. Now what I'm keeping into account is most draw ranges are about 32 inches, so I think that's where we're kind of working with. We also have our digital scale, so we want to kind of keep that in mind. So I think probably here is pretty good. I'm not real interested in the measurements. This extra meat back here is just going to give you a place to either bolt it down to your workbench or clamp it down to deck railing or something like that. There's plenty of room up there. I think I mounted it about 5-6 inches back from the front end, so I think this will probably get me where I want to go. I've got a 27.5 inch draw length, so I think I'm pretty good. Just move it back just a little bit and take my speed square, make sure we're butted up real good, and now take a pencil and go ahead and draw our holes here, and trace them out. So the elongated mounting holes, this is what I'm talking about. So you always want to have a washer. You never want the screw to be biting into, the screw head to be biting into this edge. Plus this particular one will slide right through, so it's not going to be any good to you. So what I'm going to do now is I've found a drill bit out of my index that's about as big as the actual shaft of this screw, but not out to the threads. I want these threads to bite in, so it's just a little bit smaller than the actual shaft of the screw, and I'm going to pre-drill these holes so they're a little easier to mount. going to go ahead and drill all the way through. And on this one, because I've got the cabling on this thing, I want to come forward as much as I can without coming too close to the top of the oval. Just so that I'll be able to see and get my fingers in there and be able to ratchet it down. The wrench will reach in there, but you know, to start the screw, I'm going to need my fingers in sight. Okay. So, let's get this lined up. And I'm going to tighten these down to a point, but then I'm going to use the speed square to make sure that I get it nice and squared up. Let's move that out of the way for the moment. Okay, so now that we've got this reattached, we've got more meat on the back, we've got enough meat on the front that you can clamp this down to a workbench or get something like this Craftsman portable workbench. I don't have a workshop. I've got to pretty much move my stuff as stuff in the house shifts, so this is the perfect and ideal situation for me. I can mount it on here, put my bow on there, I can clamp it into this table and not worry about it popping up. And if I so feel uncomfortable, I can always clamp it down here as well, and on this side with C-clamps. So, recap. I now can hold my bow to steady it at the beginning and at the end of the draw cycle. I've moved it forward to where my arm span is much better. We've got a ruler mounted. A lot of things that you can do with this thing is, like I said before, you got your peep to peep or peep to arrow. You've got your pin to peep. You can do a peak weight, holding weight. One of the things that I learned with this particular H10 AWS scale is that it kept going off on me, and I'd have to retract everything and bring it back in again. There is a setting to keep it on all the time, but in that case you have to make sure that you shut it off physically, otherwise it will run down the batteries in several hours. Another thing that I've learned about this is it takes a long time to spool out the wire cable. So one of the things that I've seen done is that if you remove the handle and cut the threaded part off, that allows you to clamp your chuck on your drill driver on there and use a drill to wind it out and wind it in. I think you have to be really careful with that because you don't want to overdraw. You want to, you know, drills just aren't touchy enough to get it right down at that bottom end. So either want to stop and actually physically turn the drill around, or just keep with the crank. It'll take a bit longer to do it with the crank, but you know, you're not keeping your bow on here for a long time. You're not going to be drawing it constantly. You're going to get your measurements. You're going to put it away. If you make arrow changes or something like that, you're going to pull it out. You're going to put it on the draw board again, and you're going to work it like that. So it's not like it's a piece of equipment that you're going to use every single time or all the time every day. It's something that's going to be used a lot. Okay, so Tune in for my next video. It's going to be demonstrating how to use this thing, what measurements you want to get, some of the draw curve cycles that you can plot. Might even see if I can't come up with an Excel spreadsheet with the calculations already done, so I can do that. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them. I'm going to wrap this one up for now. So we've got obsession bows on here. We've got rattler grips. We'll be doing stuff on the sword sights, the Titan in particular. We've got some arrows coming in. We'll be doing videos on that. So stay tuned, folks. Reaper 1717. I'm out.